Thanks so much for joining, everyone. We'll be getting started momentarily. Hello, everyone. Good evening or good afternoon, wherever you are. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for Ask Me, our educational webinar series. My name's Audra Hines, Vice President of Care Services for the ALS Network. I want to thank our mission benefactor families and everyone who helps support our programming. The contributions from these individuals and families are absolutely amazing, and programs like this one tonight, as well as the multitude of services we provide, would not be possible without these generous donations. Many of you joining tonight may know the ALS Network well, and some of you might be new to our organization and the services we provide. Please know that if you or your loved one need a piece of equipment loaned to you, emotional support or counseling, assistance with finding home care, help understanding insurance benefits, guidance in finding an ALS specialist for care or a clinical trial, or just someone with expertise to answer any other questions about the disease, the ALS Network is here for you. Our committed staff is driven on a daily basis to provide high quality, personalized, and local services. And we also fight on the legislative advocacy front and build our growing research program. To learn more about the ALS Network and the menu of services we provide, please visit alsnetwork.org for more information. Many people with ALS will experience difficulty with their speech as the illness progresses. Some will ultimately lose the ability to speak, causing frustration on many levels, of course. There are options out there, and using speech and communication technology can greatly improve the quality of life of people with ALS. Our speaker tonight is Amy Rahman, a speech language pathologist at the Forbes Norris ALS Research and Treatment Center in San Francisco. She's devoted her career to developing and implementing communication solutions for people with ALS. She helps provide strategies, tools, and technology to keep people connected to and participating in communities and interests that enrich their lives. She also provides oversight for the Communication Equipment Loan Program for the ALS Network, which provides evaluations, demonstrations, and loans of innovative communication tech to people throughout California and Hawaii. Amy, thank you so much for being here with us tonight. We're really looking forward to the presentation.
Hi there. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. Let me try to share my screen, and forgive me if I stumble around a bit. I'm going to give it my best shot here. Okay.
That looks great, Amy.
Okay, perfect, perfect. Okay. All right. So welcome to Communication with ALS. Today I'm going to share with you some broad concepts about communication technology so you have a framework for understanding what is available. I'll also provide you with some specific recommendations so you can get started on the right path. I'll share a few videos so you can visualize what we are discussing. And then I also want to enjoy some time hearing from you with your questions or sharing your experiences. There we go. All right, let me first get started by telling you a little bit about my background. For the past 24 years, I've focused my career as a speech therapist on providing communication solutions to people with ALS. During that time, I've been a member of the multidisciplinary team at the Forbes Norris ALS Research and Treatment Center in San Francisco. And additionally, I founded and helped run the communication equipment lending library for the ALS network. Now, of course, everyone with ALS has different challenges, and those challenges can change over time. Some people may be experiencing or eventually experience difficulty being understood when they speak and require an alternative way of communicating verbally. Others may face challenges using their computer or their phone due to arm and hand weakness. I want to get started today by talking about some speech technology solutions that are available. So non-speaking literate adults need the ability to compose a novel message or activate a stored message, which is then spoken aloud. And there are two broad categories of solutions we use to meet this challenge. The first is a text-to-speech app, which you can download onto a pre-existing iPhone or iPad or Android tablet that you already have. And this solution works really well for people who have good hand and arm strength, because you're going to be using normally the touch screen to access and type. Sometimes people will plug in an external keyboard or a mouse, so that would be an alternative access way of using an iPad. But there aren't all the methods of alternative access available to people using just a text-to-speech app on their phones. But this is a very convenient and portable method for those who are ambulatory and active. Of communication solutions are speech generating devices, or SGDs, you'll hear them referred to sometimes. And the thing that makes them special is they do provide a wide variety of alternative access methods for people with hand, arm, finger weakness. For example, you might think of eye gaze or eye tracking. And this enables people with limb weakness or paralysis to have full access to communication software, Windows computer or an iPad, their phone, being able to do emails, social media. And the other nice thing about speech generating devices is they are covered as durable medical equipment by insurance. They are recognized as medical equipment. So I want to start out, one of my favorite text-to-speech apps is, it's called Speech Assistant. And there are a number of them out there. You know, you may be using something else already. I like this one because for a couple of reasons. It is available for iPhones, iPads, and Android devices, all three. It's easy to use, but at the same time, it's packed with a lot of really nice features. And it's available in many languages. So now I want to show you a short demonstration of how Speech Assistant works. And please pay attention to a couple of things in this video. So I would love it if you noticed the recordings of my own speech that are played by some of the stored message buttons. And the name for making these kind of recordings prior to having significant changes in your speech is called message banking. And the other thing I would love you to notice is how easy it is to take a message that is created in the message window from scratch and save it as a stored message. So let's take a look. And let me start this video, I hope. There we go, I think.
Hi, I'm Amy. Due to a medical condition, I can't speak. I will use an app to talk to you. My hearing and thinking are fine, so you can speak normally to me. What did you do this weekend? I just went to a wedding.
Now we're
It
gonna
was great.
we're gonna store this message for the page. Save current phrase here, and it's in, and you wouldn't have to type that again. Oops. Okay. Now let's talk about the other type of speech solution, which is speech generating devices. As I said, they are covered by insurance, but in order to get insurance to cover them, a speech therapist needs to provide you with an evaluation so you can try out the equipment to find the best fit. And this is a good thing because there's a few moving pieces with a speech generating device. It's because it's being used by people with more severe limb weakness than just a text-to-speech app on an iPad. You do end up needing a few extra things, like some alternative access equipment. The communication software comes in a variety of forms, depending on what your alternative access method is. The speech generating devices themselves are typically Windows or iOS devices, so an iPad. And then finally, you also need to figure out with your speech therapist, how are we going to mount this so it's positioned well for me so that I can take it out with me when I'm in my wheelchair. It might be mounted to the wheelchair, or a rolling floor mount might be used to have it positioned over my bed when I'm relaxing in bed. So a variety of things to figure out, but fortunately, that's what the speech therapist is there doing the evaluation with you for. And my main recommendation, I don't have a specific, like I had the specific app, I don't have a specific speech generating device or software that I like. I would just say, please try more than one vendor's speech generating device. Typically, it's a good idea. Now let's look at let's give a look at some alternative access methods, because I keep talking about alternative access. So some of these access methods are used by people, many of these are used by people with ALS. And an access method is basically an alternative means by which someone with finger, wrist, or arm weakness can continue to use a computer or a speech generating device. People with ALS may move through a variety of access methods, from typing on a keyboard or using a touch screen to using a trackball or a touchpad to move a cursor, so you can select the letters, words, or messages in your communication software, or navigate your computer in general. So let's look at a few more access methods. And these ones may not, these ones may be new to you. These are the methods that help folks who have severe limb weakness. And the first picture shows someone using something called switch scanning, which enables a person to use a very slight movement of any part of their body to communicate and control a computer. And the other two methods are ones by which eye movement or head movement can be used for typing, selecting things on a computer, and navigating around the computer. So let's talk a little bit more about eye tracking, because eye tracking is one that I've used quite a bit, and people tend to be very curious about. So first of all, what is eye tracking? And eye tracking is the use of a camera placed at the bottom of a speech generating device, or a computer for that matter, that is able to use your eye movements to control the cursor. And eye tracking technology has dramatically improved over the decades I've worked in the field. Displayed here are a few excellent speech generating devices that offer eye tracking, and they're made by different vendors. Your speech therapist will help you determine which of these systems have the features that will best meet your needs. And another important thing, especially with eye tracking, is to make sure that that particular eye tracking camera offered by that device is the one that reads your eyes well. many people can do fine with a variety of different eye cameras. Other people need to try a few before they find the one that works well for them. Although this has gotten much better. So we used to have to shop around a bit more. Now, most of them work well for most people. And I want to show you a video of eye tracking in action, just so you get a sense of what we're talking about. So let's see if I can. There we go.
The iGaze Edge is an eye-controlled speech-generating device for children and adults who need communication, access to computer software, connection to the internet, and access to environmental control and entertainment with just their eye movement.
I found out about eye tracking through Paul at the ALS clinic. The iGaze has helped me be able to communicate with everyone. I have lost my voice due to ALS, and now I can say the things I want to say. I can be a part of everyone's conversation now. With the iGaze, I also can text and place and answer the phone. I also can go on Facebook and Yahoo to be able to keep in contact with my family and friends.
So clearly this technology is extremely important, has really changed, the way we're providing services and allowed people to have so much more access to the world around them. I do want to touch on some proactive considerations. And a little bit about the technology that will help you to achieve these tasks. So I believe, and most people who do what I do, believe that everyone with no or mild speech changes should do both message and voice banking. And the reasons are the time requirement is really small to do both of these. They're both free to do. We can't predict who may need to use a speech generating device eventually. So it's one of those things where we hope for the best, but we prepare. And if I waste a little bit of your time by having you do this, I think you'll be okay with it, because when you do need it, it's a really wonderful thing to have done. And your own voice personalizes communication in an important way, both for you and those you love. So it's sort of a gift you can give to the people that you love too. And voice banking and message banking are two separate things. And I just want to explain what they are. And this technology has really improved recently too. So voice banking produces a synthesized version of your speech by collecting a speech sample. And it used to be hundreds of sentences you used to have to read into their cloud software in order to get your own synthesized voice. But now it's down to 50 to 150 sentences. So you just have to read those aloud. Now, message banking, the great thing about voice banking is anything you would type into a communication system would be spoken in your voice. The limitation is that it doesn't really, it sounds like you, the sounds are exactly like you would make them, but it doesn't really have your style or your cadence or the way you say things. So that's when message banking comes in. And with message banking, we're able to produce recordings that have your exact style. They are a recording. So they've got your style, cadence, word emphasis, just the way you say things, which is much better for your own special snarky remarks that you make or funny things that you say when something goes wrong, those, and also for talking to animals, that's the other thing. So for example, if you were to have a message in your device to your dog and it was read just by a synthesized voice, it would sound like, "Oh, what a good boy." And dogs won't even understand that, even though they're brilliant. What they need is your cadence. "What a good boy." And so a banked message would come across. So that's kind of the difference between those two. And that's why I like to do both. And just a quick aside here, speech generating devices are so smart nowadays that you load both of them in. And for example, if you recorded yourself saying, "I love you," and you type that in, these devices will look to see if you have a message, a banked message of "I love you." And it knows that because we label them. And if you do, it'll play your banked message. And if you don't, it'll say your message with the synthesized version of your voice. So that is, that's a big improvement. To be clear, if you don't do either, it's okay too. There are plenty of synthesized voices on the market that will do the job also. And I do want to recommend a few apps. People are always asking what app should I use for this and that, and what text-to-speech app, but people want to know for voice banking. I really like if you're on an iPhone. So I've got this divided up. If you use an iPhone, there's some suggestions. If you use an Android smartphone, we've got suggestions. So for voice banking, there's an app called The Voice Keeper, and that one is really easy. And halfway through doing your voice banking, it lets you hear, you can hear what your own voice is sounding like and decide whether you want to do more of it and improve it a little more or not. You feel satisfied, and then you don't have to do any more. For message banking on an iPhone, there are a lot of recorders that will record in WAV file format, but I've given you one here because that is essential. You do want to be recording not in MP3s or other formats. You want to be doing recordings in WAV file formats, and so you don't have to do the research to find those apps. I've listed one here, the Voice Recorder Pro. That one does a nice job. You just need to do one little change in the setting to make sure it's recording in WAV file format. And that's something your speech therapist or I can help you with. For Android phones, there really is no way to do voice banking at this point on an Android phone that I'm familiar with. So I always have people do it on their own Mac or Windows laptop or desktop computer with a computer program called Acapella. Acapella My Own Voice. Acapella is the company, and My Own Voice is the name of the program they have to do voice banking. If you want to do message banking on an Android, again, any recorder app that records in WAV file format is fine to use, but since I imagine you probably don't want to research it, just use Audio Rec. That's a nice one. I've given you the icons here too, so you can kind of, and I'm happy to make this PowerPoint available to anyone who wants it. I might even post it on my website. But, just so you know that you've got the right app, it's always good to see a picture of what the icon looks like. I do have instructions on my website, Amy and Pals, too, for doing a voice and message banking. And I just want to make sure you know how to get additional help if you need it. So all of these things that we've talked about today would be something that your speech therapist at your ALS clinic should be able to help you with. And if let's say your clinic doesn't have a speech therapist or they're not available for a long time, there's some other routes you can go, or you're not at an ALS clinic. I do have a website, amyandpals.com. And on that website, I have instructional videos on lots of things. And I also have handouts. For example, there is a handout. If you go into the handout section, there's a handout on doing voice and message banking. Additionally, if you are not working with a speech therapist at a clinic, I can help by providing telehealth insurance covered appointments for you. And some of the things we do on those appointments are, I can provide you assistance with message and voice banking. We can do speech generating device evaluations. And the way we do that is actually bring in a local vendor or a few local vendors in your area, and they will bring the equipment to your home. And I just direct the evaluation remotely. And then during those evaluations, we do trials with different equipment so you can, try things out and see what's working best for you. And then I go on to, I'll write up a report, manage the speech generating device funding process. And once you get the device, a speech therapist or I can do the customization and training remotely or in person. Both work really well, and do some maybe caregiver training too. It's helpful. So if you are trying to reach out to me, feel free to email me at amy.roman@sbcglobal.net. Yeah, it's old-timey, I know. And use the subject line appointment needed. So you grab my attention because my email box fills up pretty fast. So yeah, now I would love to chat a bit, and hopefully I can address, your questions. But additional help is available, as you can see here.
Thank you so much, Amy. This was great. Lots of good ideas, some new information, I think, for a lot of people who are on tonight too. So really appreciate it. You were talking a little bit of just about some of the evaluations you do, Amy, with lots of people with ALS and folding the caregivers into. I just want to let everybody in the audience know, if you're attending an ALS clinic, or maybe you're seeing an ALS neurologist, that there is no speech therapist that's a part of your clinic team for some reason. ALS Network can provide some consults, right, with someone like Amy to help talk through some of your speech and communication challenges and get you connected that way too. So feel free to reach out to us if you need that, or just directly to your care manager. I just wanted to make sure to mention that. Couple of questions, and again, please feel free, if you do have any questions for Amy, just go ahead and pop them into the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen, and we'll get those answered. One gentleman's asking, can eye gaze or head tracking be used with an iPad or computer as an input device, or just as a part of an integrated speech generating device?
Yeah, really good question, and that's changed very recently. So there's a couple answers to that. So there's Tobii Dynavox is one of the vendors, and they recently, within the last couple of years, released a speech generating device that is an iPad and can be accessed with eye tracking or with head tracking. But that's a speech generating device that is an iPad. You don't need your own iPad. They would, that's covered through insurance. If that's your preferred platform, you prefer iPad to Windows. Also, the Apple is releasing in the next version of the iPad software, there's going to be eye tracking. I haven't had a chance to use it yet, but that's it. Is it going to be precise enough that you can do the things that you can do with the Tobii camera? I don't know. I'm really excited. Eventually, I bet it will be good. Apple doesn't do things too half-assed. I expect it to be a good solution. And then potentially you could just, have your own iPad and download some text-to-speech software, and you could have a speech generating device. You would need to get a mount though, because you need things positioned properly for you. But and then head tracking, you can already use head tracking on a iPad. And yeah, I think that answers the questions. Yeah.
Yeah, it does. Thanks. That's pretty exciting about the iPad. That's going to be cool to see.
Yeah.
You talked a little bit, Amy, in your presentation just about insurance covering eye tracking devices. When someone's asking about that, just related to Tobii, some of the other brands, which of course are very expensive.
They are super expensive. And I used to think that was a little outrageous, but now I realize how much tech support can go into these sometimes, and development. Those companies are earning their money. I believe that now. But insurance does cover Medicare, for example. When Medicare covers things, pretty much everyone follows suit. Medicare covers at 80%. And then in California, we are super lucky to have a grant that will cover the additional 20%. For people in other states, you might want to apply for the Gleason Foundation grant. Fortunately, in California, the telephone access program that we have here and takes a few pennies off your phone bill every month, they're the ones who have this grant for covering speech generating devices or the copay. So it will be covered. And or if your insurance for some reason has some strange exclusion, which I don't see almost ever anymore, most insurance does cover, and usually at, often between 80 and 100%, but we have a ways to cover the copay too. So no out of pocket.
That's great. It's really helpful. And I know we have somebody on the back end here who's going to put some information in the chat about how to get a temporary loan of a communication device from ALS Network if you're waiting to get the one from your insurance plan that Amy mentioned. Another question, what do you know about the Google Relate app?
Let's see. I'm trying to think which that is. The Google Relate. Okay, I think that's the one where it's still in beta. And I believe it's I kind of confused some of the different things that I'm looking at. But I think that's the one where you can speak with dysarthric speech.
Okay.
And it can translate for you. There is such a thing happening if that doesn't happen to be the one. Yeah, so you can still go ahead. Speech generating devices will be able to do things like, as you saw, you can talk to Alexa or Echo, you can do environmental controls, all kinds of things. But if you have dysarthric speech, people can still understand you sometimes, but all of that technology we have doesn't always understand you. And so they're looking for, and I can provide you with a way to be part of this study. They're looking for people to kind of donate their speech so that they fine tune it so that it can understand more varieties of dysarthric speech. And dysarthria is the word used for the changes in speech that happen when your muscles become weak or spastic, the articulators, your tongue, lips, jaw.
That's great, Amy. Thanks. That's helpful. Another question, how do these apps interact on a phone to allow the device to create voice for a phone call that can be heard by the caller?
Really good question. So one of the reasons that I like that speech assistant app so much is because the voice does go through your phone if you're using an iPhone. It doesn't if you're using an Android, unfortunately. They haven't added that feature in. But basically what you do is you start your phone call. While it's ringing, you open up the speech assistant app. You hear the people just fine. You can even use your speech. But if they're having any trouble understanding you, you can use messages or type a message and it goes through the phone line. So it's a really good sound. Alternatively, so that would be an app. Some people who use text-to-speech apps, if you're on an Android, you might have to just set your phone up as a speaker phone, and then you use your tablet to type messages. FaceTime is great for this because people can see you're inputting a message. With speech generating devices, they all have such good phone connection now. They do it a variety of ways, but they all do a really nice job.
That's great. That's great. Super helpful. Someone's asking specifically related to message banking. How do we know what messages to record? Do they give you a list? She says her son is young and doesn't yet have speech problems, but his phrases might be different than your typical ALS patient. So.
Yeah. So I usually provide people with a handout, and it's on my website under handouts. But it has a list of messages under different categories, and they're really there to inspire ideas. So a series of greetings, but also things like phrases you'd need for phone calls, or things you might say to a partner to help them to learn to be how to interact with you more effectively while you use a speech generating device. So things you might not even have thought about, but you're going to put it in your own words. Everyone has such a different style, a young person and an older person, we speak differently. So you always have to take lists of suggested messages and put them into your own words. They're just suggestions, but I've got that if you'd like it.
That makes sense. Related maybe to one or two of the other questions, someone's saying, I still have my voice, but I'm losing the hand function. I love to read and I can't anymore because of this loss of hand function. Is there any tech I can get to help me read on an iPad or alternative that I can control with my eyes?
Yeah, so it might even be simpler than controlling with your eyes. Although once they've got that built in, once iPads have that built in, that might be a great solution. At this point, insurance does not cover alternative access for computers or iPads, just if you don't have a speech issue. If you don't have a problem with your speech, they don't consider computer access to be a medical necessity. If you've got a speech problem, it's a medical necessity in this country based on what our insurance believes. So that means even communicating on, the internet, email, social media is not covered. You can't argue that. But you can use voice recognition software. There is a way, actually, there's great speech recognition on iPads. And I would say, here's another source for getting help, YouTube. That's how I taught myself how to teach patients how to turn on voice control of their phone. It's literally called voice control. It's within accessibility on your phone. But before you do it, watch a YouTube video on it, because there's some tips that really make it much more seamless for you. And then you can also do the same thing and control your computer. So voice control is one people always forget, and they go right to eye tracking, and just there's a simple solution. Head tracking works for people, and we've got some of those we can lend out to people, head trackers in our lending library. But there's lots of ways to do what you want to do.
That's great. And just a reminder to everybody, we are recording this tonight, and we'll send everybody the recording after the webinar is over. And Amy's giving a lot of great info. So if you forget something, it's okay. Don't feel like you need to scribble it down. You'll have the recording. Couple of other things, just some other options people are asking about. I don't know what ACAT is, Amy, but you might know. Someone's asking, is ACAT scanning a viable option for single switch scanning users?
I thought they were saying Center for Accessible Technology, but that's not what that, maybe they could let us know what that is. I might know what they're talking about, but I don't know the acronym necessarily.
It's Assistive Context Aware Toolkit, if that helps.
Is that something that Windows is putting out right now? Is that the Windows product package for accessibility?
Looks like it might be. He included a link here too, through Intel Labs.
Yeah. Sure. Scanning we used to use a lot more before eye tracking technology developed to the point where it's so relatively easy to use now. But yeah, you could use the tools in, if I think I understand what you're talking about. Yes, you could use those tools for scanning.
Okay. Another specific tech question. I'm wondering about the newer speech synthesis tech like 11 Labs. If you know about that, he says it seems to be much higher quality than, say, Acapella.
Yeah, I've been hearing about some new ones happening all around the world. There's new technology coming in all the time. So, I'm not sure about how, I haven't had a chance to compare and contrast, but I do believe that Acapella isn't the end all. It has been for a while. It's, it moved ahead of some of the other ones, but it's a constant one of those races where, one horse moves ahead. So I don't have an opinion about that. And as soon as I give you the opinion, a new one will move ahead. So yeah, Acapella is very good. But I'm sure there's some that are probably better now.
And Amy, what would you suggest if someone's saying the problem with most communication device vendors is that they mail the device to you and everyone wants to help you over the phone, not in person? What should you do in that situation if you feel like you need some more help?
Yeah, I don't like that. So when you live in a very remote area, that can end up happening to you. And there's almost nothing that we can really do about it. But I require all my vendors to come out and do home visits. Some of them have to fly, to people's locations. Because I just feel like, especially in the beginning, you need someone there with you, ideally. So if the vendor just cannot do that, you may need to travel to a clinic that does evaluations. you may be in that unfortunate position. In California right now, there aren't too many locations where vendors won't go to, but in other states, I'm sure that's more of an issue.
Yeah, thank you. Not an easy answer there. We can certainly zoom in people like you as much as we can, but I know nothing beats being there in person. I understand.
Just initially. In some ways, I even like doing telehealth better because I can get onto the device without kind of leaning over the bed and bumping the person. You know, I can just kind of get in and make some changes, and we talk, and I make some changes on the software, and we fine tune things. And in some ways, it's even better for some adjustments. But literally, like, the worst thing is setting up a mount. I send people videos for how to set up these speech generating device mounts, but it can feel very daunting for people. So I love it when the vendor goes out for the evaluations, and usually one training at least.
Okay. And tied to that, Amy, there's someone who's saying she signed up for something called Voice Keeper, but she says they changed the program. She doesn't know how to use it. What would you recommend in that situation?
Voice Keeper, one of the things I like about the Voice Keeper is they have really good tech support. And I've got if you do, you could probably find the support. I have it locked in. I've got the email that I send these questions to, because I don't think it's actually changed, but a lot of times people will say, hey, all of a sudden I can't find my phrase. It seems like it doesn't recognize me anymore. And I can send it to a tech support person there, and they will unravel the problem. So I really rely on their tech support, because I'm not always sure what do you mean it's gone? It can't be, but they'll be able to work with you all through email. They don't call you or anything like that, but they can email you solutions.
Okay. Okay, great. We do have one more question again, just as a quick reminder, if anybody has any last minute questions, just go ahead and throw those into the Q&A function. What about recent projects of people getting, he says, wired up and a device then translates the thoughts? Maybe it's the brain stimulation project, possibility of volunteering, he says, for this. And I know there's a couple studies out there doing this.
Yeah, finally, we do have some studies in California. For the longest time, all that was happening on the East Coast, but it's called brain-computer interface. And that kind of comes in two varieties also. There's the variety where you just wear like electrodes externally on a cap, or, they just place the electrodes externally on your scalp. And then there's the more successful ones, the ones that I think you're talking about, where it like is translating as you're forming the words in your mind. That one is invasive. So the electrodes are placed on your motor strip of your brain. I have one person I'm working with who's doing really beautifully with that. And it's pretty, it's exciting. That's the new forefront, and hopefully it won't always be invasive. That's asking a lot.
Everybody gets a little freaked out sometimes when reaching out about that and thinking about it being invasive. And I know that can seem a little scary. So
yeah. And we would only use that if someone really lost any other option, eye tracking, scanning, and those very few people get to that point.
that makes sense. We don't have any more questions. I think I'm going to wrap this up. Amy, thank you. This was terrific and so much good information. You're such a resource and a partner for us at ALS Network. We rely on you a lot, and thank you for all of your expertise as always. Amy, if you don't mind, while I'm wrapping this up with some slides, do you mind just putting your contact information back into the chat? If anybody wants to reach you, that'd be great.
Sure, let me do that. Let's see. Am I sharing with everyone?
Yeah, just type it right into the chat. That's great.
Yeah,
And I want to thank everyone so much for joining us tonight. We're really grateful to each of you for your time and your commitment, just being a part of our community. A big thanks again to all of our supporters. And if you have other questions that weren't answered tonight, including questions about the ALS Network, please do email us at askme@alsnetwork.org. The ALS Network brings the ALS community together in various ways throughout the year to create help and hope for families impacted by ALS today and for those who will be diagnosed in the future. These celebratory and meaningful gatherings provide opportunities for connection and raise awareness and funds to benefit ALS Network's mission priorities. Please visit events.alsnetwork.org to learn how you can join us. And finally, as you know, philanthropy fuels everything we do, and we're so grateful to committed donors who give generously throughout the year. To learn more about how you can support valuable programs like this one tonight, please visit our website at give.alsnetwork.org and watch for the short survey on tonight's presentation that you'll receive via email to help us plan for future programs. Thanks so much again, and we'll see you next time.